Hello, we are watching VNA News Broadcast Daily and following today's headlines.
Paris Peace Agreement is remembered at a solemn ceremony and in an interview with former Vice President Nguyen Thi Binh. Prime Minister Nguyễn Than Dung receives Visiting Minister for International Development of Finland, Heidi Hautala. Exports soar 43% in January to $10.1 billion.
On January 25th, a solemn ceremony to celebrate 40 years since the signing of the Paris Peace Agreement to end the war and restore peace in Vietnam was held in Hanoi. We have more.
The ceremony was attended by Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng, State President Trung Tan Sang, other present and former leaders of the party and state, members of the negotiation delegations of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and the Provisional Revolutionary Government of South Vietnam that took part in the Paris Conference, and international guests. 40 years ago, on January 27, 1973, the Paris Peace Agreement was signed. It signalled victory of the longest and most difficult diplomatic struggle in Vietnamese diplomacy in the 20th century. It also marked a historical triumph of Vietnamese people who fought for 19 years against the US. At the event, the participants recalled the Vietnamese people and army's hard struggle in the battlefield and the 4-year diplomatic fight in Paris. The speakers said the peace agreement was a source of encouragement to justice and peace lovers across the world, who supported Vietnamese people on the battlefield and at the negotiation table. The Paris Peace Agreement was the pinnacle of our country's diplomacy during the fight against the US. It was a brilliant landmark in the golden age of Vietnam's revolutionary diplomacy. He suggested that people working in foreign affairs apply the lessons learnt from the Paris Conference. Sang stressed the party, state and people of Vietnam were grateful to socialist countries and international friends, including progressive people in the US, for supporting and encouraging Vietnamese people and their struggle for independence, freedom, peace and justice. On January 24th, the Vietnamese embassy in France, where the Paris Peace Agreement was signed, held a meeting to mark the 40th anniversary of the event. It also organised a photo exhibition featuring activities of the two Vietnamese negotiation delegations and articles on the negotiation process from local newspapers.
Nguyen Thi Binh is a name synonymous with the success of the Paris Agreement to end the war and restore peace in Vietnam. She was the head of a Vietnamese delegation at the Paris negotiations to mark the 40th anniversary of the agreement, being granted Vietnam News Agency an interview.
The agreement was signed on January 27, 1973, to end the war and restore peace in Vietnam. Binh later became Vice President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. She was the only female foreign minister in the 4 parties that took part in the negotiations. She recalled that she was very nervous to take over the mission, knowing it was an extremely important and difficult task. Binh said the hardest negotiation period of the agreement came at the end of 1972, when, to put pressure on the Vietnamese side, the US bombed Hanoi and Haiphong for 12 days and nights. However, the victorious Dien Bien Vu battle in the air forced the US to sign the agreement, she stressed. Discussing the achievements that followed the Paris Agreement, as well as the decisive factors that made the agreement successful, Binh said,
"The success of the Paris Agreement was the result of a struggle fought by the people of Vietnam for more than 10 years. It was a victory on political, diplomatic and military fronts. Therefore, it was Vietnam's success across all fronts that forced the United States to sign the agreement."
Regarding the lessons learnt from the Paris Agreement, the former Vice President said,
"Many lessons were learned from the Paris Agreement that are valuable today and will remain so in the future. The first lesson was to maintain our principles of independence, self-control, and to act for the national interest while keeping both feet on the ground to decide every step on the battlefield and the diplomatic front. Secondly, we were extremely consistent to our principles, goals, and strategy, but in a flexible way. Thirdly, the combinations of national and international strength, our victory over the United States was the largest ever international solidarity movement in history.
Kết hợp sức mạnh của dân tộc và sức mạnh của thời đại.
President Chung Tae-sang chaired the 9th sessions of the Central Steering Committee for Judicial Reform on January 24th. The sessions laid out tasks for 2013.
In 2013, the Steering Committee is to complete policies and laws that institutionalize the party's guidelines and orientations on judicial reform. It will collect public opinions on the amendments to the 1992 Constitution. The committee continues building detailed projects to renovate the organization and operation of the People's Procuracy, People's Court, and investigation agencies. President Sang, who also has the Central Steering Committee for Judicial Reform, admitted that judicial reform is difficult and complicated. He requested the steering board to focus on the draft of the revised 1992 Constitution and regulations on judicial operation.
On January 25th, Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung received visiting Finnish Minister for International Development Heidi Hautala. He pledged to facilitate Finnish businesses' operations in Vietnam.
Prime Minister Dung expressed wishes that the two sides will work together to boost their cooperation. He mentioned the fields of politics, diplomacy, economics, trade and investment, education training, and official development assistance. He suggested Finland continue providing official development assistance for Vietnam. The assistance will be used in poverty reduction, clean water and environmental hygiene, forestry, private economic development, green growth, and climate change adaptation. For her part, Mr. Heidi Hautala said her visit aims to have Finnish companies expand their investment in Vietnam, particularly in environmental and green technologies. He stated that Vietnam is one of the time-honored partners in Finland's development cooperation policy. At the reception, Finnish business representatives pledged to increase their investment in Vietnam. They refer to such areas as consultation services, technology, renewable energy, measurement, and weather monitoring.
Earlier on January 24th, Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung attended a video conference of the health sector to launch its task for this year. There he urged the sector to address hospital overload.
In 2012, the health sector made improvements in caring for people's health. A Vietnamese person now enjoys an average lifespan of 73 years. The rate of malnutrition in children under 5 years of age had fallen to 16.3%. The infant mortality rate was 0.1%. The number of hospital beds stood at 21.5 per 10,000 people. Hospitals are now treating about 82% of all medical waste. 100% of communes and over 90% of hamlets have medical workers. 95% of communal health care centers have a nurse or midwife. Health insurance now covers around 68% of the population. Prime Minister Dung asked the sector to deploy a nationwide health insurance program to enable poor and near-poor people to get insured when going to hospital. He also requested the sector to drastically reform administrative procedures to make treatment easier for everyone.
The General Statistics Office reports that the country is estimated to earn $10.1 billion from exports in January. The figure represents a year-on-year rise of 43.2%. We'll see how we made it.
The foreign investor sector contributed $6.61 billion to a total export value. It surged 47.3% against the same time last year. Products recording the highest turnover were crude oil, garments, seafood, footwear, mobile handsets, and spare parts. During the month, import turnover was $9.9 billion, resulting in a trade surplus of $200 million. After 20 years of running in a deficit, Vietnam achieved a trade surplus of $780 million in 2012, reported the General Department of Customs.
And that comes to the end of our news today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.